Hello, welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast. I'm Justin Sloan.
And I'm Paul Zeidman. It's quite a thrill for me. I've known this guy for quite a long time on social media, but this is actually the first time we've actually interacted in a video and audio kind of sense. He is professionally known as Nathan Graham Davis, but we'll just call him Nate today. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Same. It's really cool to connect in this way after all these years of kind of being in each other's circles and everything.
Very much so.
As I said before we jumped on, by the way, I'm a little sick right now, so we'll see what my voice does. I'm hoping it'll hold out, but
fingers crossed. Yeah, no, it's exciting. So we came across you from your show, and then Paul through your social media for many years now, it sounds like. And so I'm excited to be speaking with you as well. I recently enjoyed your interview with David L. Williams, who I had the pleasure of meeting at the Austin Film Festival and reading his script that was on the blacklist, and it was awesome. I was very impressed with the pacing and just what a great job he did. So today we're talking to you, though. So we'll do a little introduction to who you are and all that stuff. But we always start off with just what have you been reading or listening to or watching? And we can start, and then you can think about it if you don't have an answer yet. If you have any good books. Or
I am currently reading two things. I'm reading Dan O'Bannon's book on screenwriting, which was recommended to me kind of recently. Just something I'd never even knew existed, but Alien was kind of a formative screenplay for me in my own education. So it was cool to hear about that. So just going through that, and that's been interesting. And then I'm reading this book on Isaac Newton as potential research for another thing that I want to write down the line. So that's been keeping me busy. And then I'm trying to catch up on like all these great 2022 films. And like, I saw like over 30 movies in theaters last year. I feel like I've seen so much, and yet there's still so much to see. It was just such a good year for movies. So, but yeah, so lots to keep me busy.
For sure. And they just announced the Oscars, right? So, I mean, the Oscar nominees. So,
they did. Yeah.
Time to catch up if we haven't seen any of those or all of those.
I thought I would have seen more of them. I mean, there were a few things on there that I hadn't seen, and I was kind of surprised were on there. And then there were other things that I expected to be on there weren't, but I guess that's the way it goes every year.
Yeah. We should do an Oscar podcast one of these days with, but not yet. Paul, what do you got? You got anything for us?
Yeah, I've got a double hit for stuff we watched. So my wife and I had been highly recommended, and we finally sat down to watch The Menu. And I'm gonna get to that in a second. But she had to finish up some work. So while she was finishing up the work, I was just scrolling through HBO Max trying to find something to pass the time. I hadn't seen it. Maybe even since it originally came out in the late 70s, was Star Trek: The Motion Picture. And this is the director's cut on HBO Max. And I thought, oh, well, I don't remember being that good to begin with. So I'll give it a go. It was so boring. They just added scenes that had no dialogue. It was just extra long shots of them flying around the Enterprise. And here's them going towards the mystery cloud. Oh my God, it just dragged on forever, just made it even worse. And it's just not a good movie. And it looks so 70s. I mean, the uniforms and the sets and everything, it's just, hey, we did this TV show 10, 12 years ago. We're just going to do it with more money. And it really looks like they just expanded on the TV show. It was just so boring and it was just so bad. I couldn't get over it.
Probably saw that when I was real young, but I don't remember it well.
Don't revisit it. Just start with 2. That's the best one to kick off with, and you will have no regrets. So stopped watching that, and then we watched The Menu. Wow, why that did not get nominated for anything, like even really best screenplay. Oh, it's such a dark comedy, and that's the thing is I always was under the impression it had horror elements, but it's more thriller elements. There's a little violence, I guess is the best way to put it, here and there.
But it definitely had its own kind of, own tone and vibe to it, which was really
fun, Yeah, but having, kind of being somewhat familiar with the restaurant scene, there's so much of it that was so relatable and just like so many laugh out loud moments, but it's a very dark comedy. So if you like that kind of thing and you're familiar with that kind of world, I think you'll like it very, very much.
Awesome. I did watch, let's see, since we're talking about some of these Oscar ones, I did watch the Banshees of, how do you say it?
Banshees of Inisherin.
Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm in a Facebook group of people who talk crap about movies, and a lot of them seem to hate that one. I enjoyed it.
Wow.
Yeah. And people are picky with their own reasons, but I mean, as far as like just a fun movie with characters doing stuff, it's not like a huge high concept explosions or anything, but who cares? I thought the characters were great. I enjoyed the story. Yeah, so my recommendation is
That's interesting to
yes.
hear you say, because I feel like the narrative that I've been seeing online, which I'm mostly on Twitter these days, has been that everybody's loved it.
Oh,
I
good.
wouldn't say I quite loved it, but I liked it a lot. It just I didn't quite feel satisfied by the story at the end. But I mean, the
Yeah.
tone of it, the performances, the way it looked, like all of that was just perfection. So I mean, it was there were a lot of impressive things about it.
Yeah, not at all like the story that I would have written, but I think that's kind of fun too, because sometimes I don't want to just be like, oh, here's
Totally.
another thematic or formulaic or something that I know is going to do like this. Oh, now they have to do a twist like this, or you know what I mean? Guessing every 5 seconds. So anyway, on to you, Nate. So you have a cool story where like you made a comeback and all that, and you're doing your comeback now. And so let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about your show. So tell us a quick version of who you are.
Sure. So I am a dad living in Western Massachusetts with my wife and two kids. And this is pretty much where I've lived my whole life. I've tried to escape a couple times. When we were younger, we actually were going to move out to LA a couple times. It just kind of never materialized. But the reason for that is because I started writing screenplays when I was 19. That's when I wrote my first one. So I'm twice that age now, and I've been doing it for a really long time. I had a bit of a break when I was like 26 or so, 27. And I optioned something, signed with a manager, was taking generals at, big studios and things. It kind of seemed like things were going to go. And then within a couple of years, all of that fizzled out. And I had kind of gotten my foot in the door at a pretty good day job. So my first kid had been born, my other was on the way. And I decided to just kind of duck out of it, focus on writing things that were more for me, like just to get something made. So I like wrote a graphic novel and stuff, and I just focused on my day job. And that was kind of how things went for the next several years, until 2020. I really jumped back into screenwriting again. Just I think that was a year where COVID hits, and it just kind of feels like the world is ending. And I started to kind of think, what are my priorities and what do I really want to do? And I felt like I wanted to know that I'd really given the filmmaking thing a real shot, and just given it my best effort, And then I felt like if I knew that I did that, I'd feel good about it. And so I jumped
I
back
just
in, and
actually, if I just
yeah,
interject, I kind of remember like a friend of yours, like kind of like motivated you or motivated
yeah,
slash inspired you to get back into it.
not on purpose, but
Hmm.
yes, my good friend Mike Morin, who I've known for years and years, and just one of those guys that constantly were messaging back and forth almost daily. Um, he had asked me if he could bounce a log line off of me, and he had like kind of said it and like, I know you're not a screenwriter anymore, but can I bounce this log line off of you? And I was like, yeah, sure. But in my mind, I'm like, you know, hey, like I might be a screenwriter still. Like it's kind of like still part of who I am. I just
How
haven't done
dare
it in a
you?
while, and there was kind of this clash with my identity there. So I think that was definitely part of it too. And so I just started thinking about it, and within probably 10 days of that message, I decided not only to like jump back in and write another screenplay, but to actually document the whole process of that on YouTube, and document my process of trying to break back in. And at that point, my only contacts like, really were other writers. So I didn't have representation certainly, and I knew I would just kind of need to start from scratch to some degree. So that's what I did. And amazingly, about a year later, I signed with my manager now, Jeff Belkin at Zero Gravity, and we optioned an old script of mine to a production company, which was really, and they were really excited about it, and they kind of fast tracked it. And a year later, that movie was produced. So just last year in late spring of 2022, that movie was produced, and it should be coming out in late spring, summer of this year. It still hasn't been announced yet, so I can't talk about details too much,
Hmm.
but legitimate Hollywood movie, and just really incredible how everything lined up this time around.
That's
That's really
great.
cool.
I actually did what so I did watch some of the videos about re-entry, and I thought it was really a great idea to kind of, I guess you were getting advice, but you're also getting feedback on this is on a new script from a lot of the people you were talking to. I mean, it wasn't just writers, because you were talking to people in the industry, and also, I guess, people from production companies, and just people kind of in the universe of the industry that you're trying to break back into. So how were you able to coordinate all those meetings, and did that really help, especially developing the script? Did that really help the script improve for you?
I mean, I definitely think the process of doing that series, because it was like, 26 episodes and interviews every time and different. The way I kind of structured it was I would have a conversation about whatever element of the script I was working on the time with the people that I was, connecting with, and get their take on how they approach that type of thing. So whether it's outlining or the first act of a movie or whatever. I had screenwriters give me pro screenwriters give me notes on camera on my first draft and my second draft of the script. And that was kind of a scary thing to do, to put that out there, but it was also a really cool process. And just kind of doing that and really like digging into the nitty gritty with all these people it was an excellent experience. And I definitely think it made not only the script better, but me better as a writer. I think the only person in that series that wasn't like really, so like Jeff Willis is an executive at Marvel, but I know him because he's also a screenwriter. And and Clint Jones is not a writer, he's a director. But other than that, it was pretty much all pro writers, and they're, for the most part, were just people that I knew from the last time around, and maybe had sort of stayed in touch with, but probably hadn't talked to at least in a few years. And so I just kind of emailed or reached out on Facebook and said, hey, would you be willing to be part of this? And for the most part, people were totally into it. So a lot of generosity, and it was a great experience.
Really cool, really cool. So what'd you do in those years in between? Did you say, or do you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly just focused on my day job, and wrote stuff for me. So I wrote a graphic novel called Malice and Mistletoe, which Jack Purcell, who's an artist, has done a lot of DC and Marvel stuff. He lives near me, and I found him randomly as I was thinking about doing this as a graphic novel. So I asked him if I could buy him a couple beers and just pitch him the idea, and he was into it. So we co-created that together and just raised 10 grand on Kickstarter and put it out there that way. And that was a lot of fun, because it was just something purely for us. And then wrote a ton of short stories during that time. In that time, I did write one script, which I really didn't end up doing anything with, but is now doing something, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of taking time away to more focus on me and having young kids and all of that. So
I know how that goes.
But yeah, it's kind of one of those
the
things that I couldn't escape from. So it just, whatever reason, it's part of my identity, and I had to get back to it.
Did you have a strategy with the short stories? Like, were you thinking about going the novelist route as well, or is it just something to get the creative
Yeah,
out?
I started work on a novel, and I think, I figured at that time I was thinking I probably would write novels at some point, but it wasn't like something that I wasn't being super strategic about anything at that point. I was mostly just writing for the sake of writing and just enjoying it. So,
yeah,
I wrote probably like 35, 40 short stories. Tried to put some of them out there, just publishing in magazines or whatever. Had a little bit of success with that, but nothing crazy. Not that there's like a huge market for short stories these days anyway. If you get in like the best pro magazines, you might be lucky to make a few $100 and maybe 10,000 people see it or something, so it's like, that's like the cream of the crop. And so it really is, it's something that you do because you love it, which I definitely did, and I still want to do more of that.
Yeah. For the record, the way that I've found the best success with short stories in terms of money is Fiverr and places like that. Just go on there and say, I'll write you a short story, especially if you have some credits behind your name or something, and they want you in their anthology, then they'll dish out some bigger bucks for that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Wait a minute. What? All right, hold on. We're turning this into a note-taking session. All right. So really, you go on Fiverr and say, I'll write you a short story, and people pay you to be in their anthology?
Yeah. I've done a few of those. And Fiverr, Reedsy, my wife did a company called Kubrick. She started it, and it's another one like that. And those kind of places where you can just go on there and say, I'm willing to do this, and then just list a nice price that's kind of up there that you're like, because I don't want to use my time if either I don't really, just, it's not something I really want to write from my own heart, or just spending your time on something that's not yours. Like, it better be worth it in some way. So, and if they think it's worth it and they have the money, then why not?
Are you ghostwriting it, or are you?
No, because
So
usually they want the name on it as well. So you could do a ghostwriting. I have both on there. I haven't done it for about a year now, but I when I was doing it, I was actually making as much for my books as I was doing this stuff. And then I would put ghostwriting, or if I really love it, I'll put my name on it and take a little bit less off usually, because I feel like that way it's I don't know. I don't know why I did that. I just did. But yeah, so a thing that
that's
we could
cool.
always coach
So
you on if you're curious.
they'll present you with the idea or something like that, or
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the general premise of,
Or
or like
the theme of
theme
the
or something.
anthology usually.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, they're like, we want to do an anthology based on space marines and on a planet fighting big bugs or something like that, you know?
Oh yeah,
So,
I'm
yeah.
probably going to do this. I really
Sweet.
am glad that you mentioned that, because it's like I'm gonna have a need to find at least some income, because I'm quitting my day job in a couple
Yeah.
months, and like, there are several things in the works, but like those might hit this summer or it
Yeah.
might take longer, so having little things like that could be really useful.
Cool.
So
We got
that's
to
cool.
bring value to you as our guest as well as you bring value
That's
to
great.
us.
Well done.
The other thing I'll throw at you and for people listening was that just being open to all these new weird things going on, right? Like when the NFT stuff was going big, I jumped in and did some of that as well. I was like, I could write some NFT stories, right? Build your world for your NFT project. And then that resulted in a lot of business. And then now AI, I don't really know how to leverage that yet, but I'm sure there's something there.
I'm
So
playing around with it right now, actually.
cool.
I'm coming around on it. I'm fairly pro writing AI right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It's
fun as a
pretty
tool,
interesting.
right?
Yeah,
We
I
did a
mean, I
podcast
think
episode
like
about it.
I initially had this like emotional reaction to like, what the fuck? Like I've been like, can I swear on this? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, but like, I've done all this work. I've been, writing forever, and like, people are gonna come in and like try and like just create a program that lets them do the writing for them. And then, I started looking into it and realizing, oh, this could actually be a really useful brainstorming tool,
Yeah.
and so I've been playing around with it a little bit. And I think after I finish the script that I'm writing right now, I'm going to purposely try and write one with kind of augmenting my process using AI and just see how that feels, and maybe even
Nice.
documenting it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have to bring you back on at some point then, because we did a podcast episode where we just chatted about it, but we haven't like interviewed somebody who's used it extensively aside from myself. So that'll be fun. But what separated you from like that stuff to why, aside from the identity, screenwriting is the thing for you? Like what made that in your heart?
I mean, I have just always loved movies, and I think that's a huge part of it. Like I mean, I think back, I've got all these like formative movie experiences. Like getting like the first big one was Jurassic Park for me, and seeing that in theaters and my dad, and just things like that. That really I think are big. And then I think also digging deeper is something that I've kind of realized about myself as I've thought about this type of thing over the years, is probably the fact that like I was bullied a lot as a kid, and I think it like there's like this weird thing that comes out of that, of like needing to prove yourself on some kind of like grand stage or whatever, and like what bigger stage is there than movies? And so that's maybe less healthy. But if you're looking for honesty, I think that's part of it.
For sure, for sure. Cool. Now, and I'll ask and then see if Paul wants to jump in. Just any so far like big lessons learned as you've made your comeback so far, like where it's like, oh, I should have done this earlier in my return to Hollywood, or even the first time around. Man, I wish I had done that
I
back
mean,
then.
all sorts of things. And one thing that comes to mind, just because I was talking about this with somebody else recently, was I think if I have developed like a couple good friendships with actors that were on the movie, and
Hmm.
that's been like an amazing thing, just to kind of like discuss with them, their approach to these roles that I wrote, and how they thought about them,
Hmm.
and the depth that they brought to those characters that, in ways that I had never even considered. It was like really fascinating to me. And a lot of those conversations have been inspiring and kind of made me think about things differently as I'm writing now. Um, and I'm very grateful for that. So I never really knew any actors beforehand. And I think that would have been, I networked and met like a lot of writers and became friends with a lot of writers over the years. And I kind of think it would have been great to cultivate relationships with other people kind of working in the same medium, whether it's actors, directors, whatever, because, similarly, I had an incredible experience working with the directors on a movie that is, kind of moving along now. So we've got producers and directors attached to that. And I did a couple rewrites with the directors and just learned a ton from it. And so that's all been really powerful and informative. And, if I could go back, I think I would have spent more time kind of building those relationships, because I think that's really useful.
Awesome.
That's pretty cool. So I actually I had some questions about you obtaining representation and then kind of what happened after that. So was it I get was your manager first made aware of you? Like, did you contact him, or did he see your videos and then said, "Hey, this this sounds really interesting. I want to know more." And he got in touch with you, and you just kind of established things. And also, I'm going to toot your horn for you that your script, The Continuum. I know it made silver for Sci-Fi and Page last
Yeah.
year or 2 years ago.
21.
21. Okay.
It feels like last year.
I'm sure.
So
I'm sure.
it all
So
moved so
I mean,
fast.
did that play a role in helping you get representation, or had you already gotten representation before that? So I mean, I just kind of like just talk us through how the whole thing played out.
Yeah. So Page came after I already had representation. So it was just kind of like one of those things where it was like it was an amazing honor, but also I had already kind of achieved the things in the last couple months that you would hope to achieve as a result of that. So it's kind of a funny way it was kind of funny the way things worked out. My manager, like the story of how I became represented by him is very convoluted and funny. And like the way it all worked out. So I had queried him years ago. And like right before I got out of things the first time, I had let go of my manager and kind of spent a little bit of time looking for another one. And so he was one of the people that I queried, and he liked my samples. And it was like, hey, I don't think these are for me, but send me your next one for sure. So whatever. And so when I decided to jump back into this years later, on Facebook, he was like a mutual friend with like 30 people or whatever, just because of all the writers I've gotten to know over the years. And so along with him and along with a few others, I just said, you know what the hell, I'm just gonna click add, and if they don't have me back, they're not gonna remember, so whatever. So I did. And I just, after he did, I messaged him and said, hey, this is who I am, you read a couple scripts of mine back in the day, enjoyed them, just wanted to say hi, whatever. That was it. And like, so he's like, great, glad to meet you. And we didn't talk again. But then as kind of I was going forward with everything, I would post about my videos once in a while. And then I had some success putting an old script of mine on the blacklist in like June of 2021. And so this was a really old script of mine, and it was like doing quite well. And it went a little bit viral on Twitter, which resulted in a ton of downloads and stuff. And so I posted on Facebook that it was really funny to me that my old script was doing this when my newer stuff wasn't getting any heat, and like basically it seemed like I peaked 8 years ago or whatever. And so Jeff, like, I guess went and downloaded it as soon as he saw that, read it, messaged me on Facebook and said, hey, I know exactly who to take this to, but I need to do it right now. Would that be okay with you? And like, we'll talk about representation later. I was like, yeah, sure. It's not doing anything else. Go for it. Let's see what happens. And so he was absolutely right. The guy he took it to had just kind of changed companies, and he was looking for something like that. And so we had an option offer on the table within like 2 or 3 weeks, and then signed after that, because everything was moving so fast. We hadn't even really gotten a chance to sit down and have like an hour-long Zoom or whatever. So, like I said, very convoluted, but it worked out.
That's great. That's a great story. And I think that's also kind of a good reminder to a lot of writers that they always think like, oh, if I don't get representation, it's not going to happen. But, it's all about you making it happen, and that you weren't knocking yourself out trying to get representation. It just it worked out that way.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is I had been querying managers like 2 months beforehand on the newer script that I'd written for the reentry series, and I wasn't getting any bites. Like nobody was reading me, and that was so frustrating because I mean, I still think that's the best thing that I've written, and it was just like I couldn't even get anybody to say I'll read it, which was weird to me since like in the query I was able to say I had a script optioned by this person, all this. Like I thought I'd get some bites, didn't. And whatever. And then it was this old script that ended up doing everything for me. I hadn't queried Jeff on that other script because I kind of figured he was watching everything on Facebook anyway. Like every once in a while he would like something that I posted. So I figured if he was interested, he'd reach out. And sure enough, it worked out that way. So it's just one of those funny things. And now actually that script is moving forward. It has producers attached, but it was just kind of, I think, a less hooky concept in terms of the things that you might query on, and that's why it got less response that way.
And also, because you said you had put that older script on the blacklist, and that's also kind of what generated so much
Yeah.
interest in it. Do you think that that played a huge factor in everything that's happened?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's funny because like, you know, it's funny to like say that a service like that like had so much impact, but it totally did. Like, I still think like I would have found another way to get things out there, but I don't think that things would have lined up with this particular movie that just got made without the blacklist. Like that was the catalyst that kind of got the ball rolling, and things moved very quickly. So I do think that was a huge part of it.
That's great. That's great. So, just blanked on what I was going to ask. Oh, and so what you said that you're gonna quit your day job and kind of focus primarily on writing. So, I mean, do you have more projects lined up? Or I mean,
Oh yeah.
your manager getting you meetings and all that stuff?
So I'm super busy, which is a great thing great situation to be in. Like right now, I'm doing a rewrite on script for producers. I'm working on finishing up my work in progress a new spec that we want to take out this spring, and then I'm also producing on a movie now too, an indie movie with like low six-figure budget that a friend is writing and directing. So between those three things, I'm already quite busy. The funny thing is I haven't been taking a ton of general meetings, just random ones that have kind of come up here and there, because our strategy has always kind of been that with this movie coming out, we were going to try and take out a script close to the same time and kind of just create this big splash there. And so I've been working on that script, and hopefully that'll be ready to go, a couple months beforehand, and then 2023 will be the year that we go hard, and hopefully that'll turn into some more momentum. We'll see. But
Excellent. That's fantastic. Justin, anything else you got to ask Mr. Davis here?
Yeah, let's talk about, we mentioned briefly your show where you interviewed David Williams and others. And so, yeah, anything you want to share about that or other, whatever other endeavors you have going on, just and how they're helping you grow and what kind of insights you've had from them?
yeah, so like with the new series that I'm doing, or like
Going Pro, is that what you said it was called?
yeah, so like that series is I thought it would be cool to kind of dig into just the new things that I'm learning and discovering as I'm like now working professionally, and that were kind of either surprising or caught me off guard or whatever. Just because there are so many, and I feel like I haven't seen as many screenwriting resources in that space. Like there's a lot about how to write a script or how to break in. And then you've got things like script notes, which are from like really incredible established writers who've been doing this for, decades. But like, this is an interesting time period of like, I'm actually working now and doing this professionally, but like figuring it out as I go. And there's a lot that's surprising to that. So I just think it's kind of a cool thing to document and capture. And so I'm trying to also interview writers who are kind of at the same time in their careers along the way as well. So
Nice.
that's what I've been doing there. And yeah, I put that first one out with David Williams, which was really cool, and people seem to love that. I've got another one coming up the next couple of weeks with Robert Brockway, who wrote this script called Billy Karate that was really seen a lot last year, and just really great action comedy writer, and he was actually almost one of the founding members of cracked.com, so interesting guy as well. But yeah, I mean, it's been fun to do, and I've got, like I said, lots keeping me busy, so really enjoying it all and just kind of trying to be grateful for it and take it as it comes.
Yeah, what do you anticipate most in terms of anxiety levels or excitement levels? What are you looking forward to with being a full-time writer? And I have some thoughts on the anxiety side of it.
I mean, the anxiety side is definitely like, I've got 2 kids, right? So like, I mean, I definitely need to find a way to generate income. And so that's an interesting way to look at things when you're talking about art or whatever, but it's just the reality of it. And so finding ways to generate income is really important, and there's definitely some anxiety there, I think, and fear there, but it's also super exciting. I mean, it's like I've dreamed of being able to do this as my full-time thing for half my life, you know? And so to be able to actually do that and structure my day completely around that, that's really, really exciting. And I'm super looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm pumped for you. You got projects
Yeah.
coming out and more things down the line. So I feel like you're gonna
Yeah,
do
and like,
great.
you know, and I'm dipping my toe into producing now too, which I'm
Sweet.
really, really excited about. That's something that I've been wanting to do too. I think there's a lot of crossover with my day job, which is in the financial industry. And so it's fun to kind of take those skills to this. And so that movie's called Urban Ed, and I'll be talking a lot more about that for sure. But
Nice.
directed and written by Wade Wofford, and an absolutely wonderful script. So
Nice. I'll throw out there for you or anybody else listening. My thought on the anxiety thing is yeah, I was like full-time author for 5 or 6 years with 3 kids, and it was crazy because sometimes author income is not as good as it should be otherwise,
sure.
and sometimes it's great. You never know. But what I ended up doing finally is just like teaching myself, like, I don't need to be pushing all the time. The best way to deal with that anxiety is to give myself a Saturday morning to just like play video games or something, just chill, just have a good time. And that, as stupid as that is, because it's taken away from being productive, so it should be more anxiety driven, right? But yeah, just giving yourself that mental space to heal, I think, is very important. So hopefully you won't ever have to deal with
That's
that. You'll
great
just be
advice.
golden the whole way along. But yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's important. And, you know, honestly, like I'm even trying to do that right now. Like, you know, yesterday, like I try and hold myself really accountable to getting, you know, things I need to get done every day. I make a list every morning and go after it. And, you know, yesterday was a day where I could tell I probably wasn't going to get everything done. And I just kind of let it go and sat down and played video games with my kid. And you
Sweet.
know what? That was great. And it was a good way to just kind of like, you know, enjoy the evening, and today's a new day, right? So
Nice. What game are you guys playing, if you mind sharing?
he got FIFA for
Okay, cool.
Christmas. He got really into soccer last fall, and then the World Cup happened, and so now it's like his thing. So I've been playing that with
Okay.
him. Usually we're like Super Smash or something like that.
Yeah,
But
we started playing Super Smash for just recently. He got as a reward for something, my son.
nice.
So
Yeah,
good time, good
that's
time.
such a fun one to play with kids.
Yeah. All right. I don't think I have anything else. Any last shout outs you want to give, or ways people can find you if you want to be reached on social media websites?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at NGD Writes, and the same thing on YouTube. And I feel like I've shouted out everything as far as my projects, so I'll just shout out my wife and kids because they're awesome.
There we go. Paul, anything else? Good.
No, I think I'm good. Nate, this was really fascinating to hear because, I mean, I've been able to watch your videos and kind of followed you online and your social media, but it's really great to just kind of really get it unfiltered from the source itself. And I think it kind of puts a unique perspective on it. And it also gives a lot of people, hopefully, who've been listening and watching this, to really stuff to think about, okay, maybe I can try that, or what's my approach that I can take that, you know, Nate did it, it worked for him. This is what I can do.
Yeah, I think, you know, at the end of the day, there is no like everybody's approach or that works, or it's different. Like everybody's a different path, and you just got to kind of find ways to put yourself out there and keep doing it until something hits. And try a bit of everything.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And listeners, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
You can
Appreciate you having me.
check out Nate's movie when it comes out. I'm sure we'll do some shout outs on social media to promote it. And once again, leave reviews for the show, spread the word of mouth, all that. This is Creative Writing Life. I'm Justin Sloan.
And I'm Paul Zeidman. You can check out my screenwriting blog, MaximumZ.blog. I've also got my books on Amazon, the Go Ahead and Ask series, interviews about screenwriting and Pi, volumes 1, 2, and 3. Like you said, he's Justin, he's Nate, I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, go write something.